Two cops decided to play kings of the road. They cuffed me to the steering wheel and left me to bake under the merciless sun. They sat back, sipping cold sodas and laughing, completely unaware that their victim was their new sheriff. Think they got off easy? Not even close. Let's go back to where it all began. The sun was an unforgiving ball of fire, hanging in the cloudless sky. The kind of heat that made the air ripple and dance above the asphalt like a mirage, mocking anyone daring enough to face it. Sheriff Lucas Hayes, a 48-year-old lawman with over 2 decades of experience, squinted through the glare. The road stretched endlessly ahead, a thin ribbon of faded gray cutting through fields of dry, brown grass. His trusty sedan rumbled beneath him, the hum of the engine a familiar comfort. Even with sweat dampening the collar of his shirt, he exuded a quiet determination, a grit built from years of handling the worst society could throw at him. Lucas had returned to his hometown just 2 months ago, taking on the role of sheriff to clean up a department plagued by corruption. He knew it wouldn't be easy. The old boy's network ran deep, tendrils of entitlement and abuse tangled in every corner of the system. But Lucas was ready for the challenge. He owed it to his community, to his family's legacy, and to himself. But today was about to test every ounce of his resolve. He barely saw the patrol car before it screeched to a halt in front of him, tires spitting gravel and dust into the air. The sun glared off its polished surface as 2 figures stepped out. The taller of the 2 was Officer Jesse Hart, wiry and cocky, with a perpetual smirk that promised trouble. Beside him, Blake Morris lumbered forward, a stocky figure with a scowl etched so deeply into his face it looked carved in stone. Lucas's jaw tightened. He took a deep breath and steadied his grip on the wheel. Hands on the wheel! Hart barked, his voice a sharp, cutting blade through the sweltering air. Lucas raised his hand slowly, his expression calm but firm. "Is there a problem, officers?" "Oh, there's a problem," Morris sneered, his lips curling. "You're on a road you shouldn't be. What's in the trunk, huh? Drugs? Stolen goods? Or is this car hot too?" Lucas blinked slowly, his patience strained but unbroken. "Gentlemen, I'm Sheriff Lucas Hayes. My credentials are in the glove compartment. Let's keep this professional." Hart's eyes narrowed. Then he snorted with laughter, the sound grating and bitter. "Sheriff? You." He leaned in, his gaze raking over Lucas with disdain. "That's the funniest thing I've heard all week." Morris chuckled, shaking his head. "Yeah, right. Next you'll tell us you're here to clean up the system." Lucas's jaw clenched. He knew these types. Bullies with badges. Too drunk on their own power to recognize the line between authority and abuse. He kept his voice measured, his demeanor steady. "Check my ID," Lucas said. "We can clear this up right now." But Hart wasn't listening. He yanked the car door open, grabbed Lucas's arm, and dragged him out. Lucas's feet hit the asphalt, the heat radiating through the soles of his shoes. Morris loomed behind Hart, his hand resting on his holster, fingers twitching. "Let me guess," Hart sneered. "Now you're going to tell us you run this place." Lucas stumbled but straightened himself, his eyes locked onto Hart's. "This isn't going to end well for you," he warned softly. Hart's smirk widened. He snapped a pair of handcuffs around Lucas's wrists and clipped them to the steering wheel inside the car. "Sit tight, Sheriff," Morris said, his voice a taunt wrapped in mockery. He slammed the door, trapping Lucas inside the metal box. The sun turned the car into an oven. Heat pressed down on Lucas's chest, every breath like inhaling molten air. Sweat soaked through his shirt, dripping from his brow, stinging his eyes. The steering wheel felt like a branding iron every time his wrist grazed it. "All right, boys," he muttered, jaw clenched. "Let's see how long you think this is funny." The minutes crawled by. Each second stretched into an eternity. The air inside the car grew dense, suffocating. His vision wavered at the edges. Memories bubbled up. Headlines about victims who hadn't made it out of situations like this. People who'd scream for help, only to be ignored. He pushed the thoughts away. Not today, he told himself. You're not dying today. Outside, Hart and Morris lounged in the shade of their patrol car, laughing. Hart popped the tab on another soda. The icy fizz loud in the oppressive heat. Think he regrets his little sheriff story yet. Hart jeered. Morris shook his head, chuckling. He'll crack soon. They always do. But they were wrong. Lucas Hayes was made of sterner stuff. The heat pressed down harder, his breath shallow and labored. The edges of his vision darkened, his hands trembling against the cuffs. He clenched his teeth, his mind a steel trap clinging to consciousness. Far away, the hum of an approaching engine broke the stillness. Deputy Rachel Torres, on her routine patrol, slowed as she saw the parked patrol car and the familiar black sedan. Her stomach twisted with dread. Something was wrong. She crept closer, dread curling in her gut. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she saw Lucas slumped over the wheel, his face ashen, soaked in sweat. "Sheriff Hayes," she yelled, yanking the door open. Heat rolled out, thick and punishing. She fumbled with the cuffs, her hands shaking. They clicked open and Lucas sagged forward, gasping. "Hang on, Sheriff," Rachel said, her voice tight with fear. "Help's coming." The world blurred into motion. Sirens, paramedics, the sharp scent of disinfectant and burnt asphalt. But Lucas's focus was clear. When he walked back into the station hours later, Hart and Morris froze, their laughter dying in their throats. Lucas's presence filled the room, his eyes twin storms. "Stand up," he ordered, his voice like thunder. They rose slowly, dread carving lines into their faces. "You're done," Lucas said, his words cold and unrelenting. "You've disgraced this badge and this community. Internal Affairs will be here shortly. You will answer for every ounce of corruption you've spread." The fallout was swift. The community erupted in outrage. Protests, headlines, demands for justice. Lucas stood firm, a beacon in the storm. "This isn't about me," he told the crowd. "It's about every person who's suffered under a broken system. That ends now." The cheers were loud, but Lucas knew the real work was just beginning. Justice wasn't a destination, it was a fight, and he was ready to see it through.